What is up, everybody, and welcome back to the Small Lake City Podcast. I'm your host, Eric Nilsson, and we have a solid week of stories. The ICE Detention Center saga, which I've been following since March, just had what might be its biggest development yet. The Salt Lake City Planning Commission passed a private jail ban, and there are now reports that the federal government is trying to get rid of the warehouse entirely. I'll give you the full picture. We've got a significant UTA fare story that's going to affect anyone who rides the train or bus, and we're going to talk about the 9th and 9th whale, because she got a makeover and Salt Lake has opinions. Plus, some great stories on crime going down downtown, a new U of U medical school, and a guest tease for next week that I'm genuinely excited about. Let's get into it. Let's start with a story that hits both a local community and raises a bigger question about how Utah does business with large corporations. Tyson Foods is closing its meat processing facility in Eagle Mountain, laying off 723 workers in the process. The company says the closure is part of a national restructuring driven by a historic cattle shortage. Beef cattle inventory in the U.S. is at its lowest level since 1951, which has sent cattle prices through the roof and squeezed the margins on meat processing. Tyson had expanded into Utah just 5 years ago, part of a wave of enthusiasm about the company coming to Eagle Mountain and bringing jobs to a fast-growing community. And to get them here, Utah offered incentives. The state gave Tyson a tax incentive deal in 2019, and here's the part that stings. That deal is still active. Despite the plant now being closed, Tyson is still entitled to the tax benefits it was promised, because the state's agreement doesn't have a clawback provision tied to sustained employment. So 723 workers in Eagle Mountain are out of a job, and the company that employed them is still collecting tax benefits negotiated with the state. But that's the story within the story, and it connects directly to a broader debate happening right now in Utah about how the state structures its economic incentive deals, because it's not just Tyson. Eagle Mountain is simultaneously dealing with a 183% proposed property tax increase for residents, while Meta's massive data center on the west side of the city is sitting on a 20-year tax break package that gives the company 100% relief on personal property taxes and 80% relief on real property taxes. Meta spent roughly $150 million on infrastructure to build its 4.5 million square foot campus there, and the tax break was designed to equalize that investment over time. If Meta carries the project through all 5 phases inside the 40-year limit, the company could earn up to $750 million in total tax relief. Meanwhile, Eagle Mountain residents are being asked to pay significantly more in property taxes to fund city services for a community that has exploded in population. The data center brings hundreds of construction jobs and some permanent positions, but the permanent headcount is closer to 200 to 300 jobs for a campus of that scale. This is the tension at the heart of the data center debate in Utah. The tax breaks that bring big tech here are real. The jobs numbers are sometimes smaller than advertised, and when something goes wrong, like a Tyson plant closure, the residents absorb the impact while the incentive agreements stay intact. Utah lawmakers are studying data center tax policy ahead of the 2027 legislative session. This is exactly the conversation they need to be having. If you ride the bus, tracks, or frontrunner, this one's for you. The Utah Transit Authority is proposing its first base fare increase since 2013. The current base fare, $2.50, has held steady for 13 years. The proposal would bump it to $3, a 50-cent increase, potentially taking effect sometime in 2027. Public comment is open right now through September 9th at rideuta.com. Here's some context. UTA hasn't raised fares in over a decade, despite inflation hitting essentially every operational cost. Fuel, labor, parts, maintenance. The agency says the increase is necessary to keep service running and to fund the improvements coming as part of the broader Frontrunner double track project. The headline that caught people's attention, the Salt Lake Tribune noted that even at $2.50, UTA fares are among the highest for a transit system of its size in the country. At $3, it would be further up that list. Cities like Denver, Phoenix, and Seattle all charge less for comparable regional rail service. UTA counters that its fare-to-service value is strong, especially with Frontrunner connecting Ogden, Salt Lake, and Provo on a single line, and that the increase is long overdue given how long fares have been frozen. The public comment period closes September 9th. If you ride UTA regularly, now is the time to weigh in. Here's a good news story that deserves more airtime than it's getting. Salt Lake City saw a measurable decline in robberies and assaults in 2026, according to new SLCPD data. Robberies in the city dropped significantly compared to the same period last year, and assaults are also down. This matters because it runs counter to the national narrative around urban crime, and it specifically counters a clip that went viral earlier this summer. Shane Gillis, a comedian, made a bit about Salt Lake City homelessness and street safety that got picked up widely. Mayor Mendenhall responded publicly, pushing back on the characterization while acknowledging the city still has real challenges to work through. But the data is the data. Robberies down, assaults down, unsheltered homelessness down nearly 10% from last year. I covered that earlier this summer. Downtown foot traffic is up, the city isn't perfect, and there's real work still to do. But the numbers for 2026 are trending in the right direction. Mayor Mendenhall credited a combination of increased coordination between the city and county on homelessness services, continued SLCPD presence in a high-activity area, and the broader investment in social services that has been building for several years. A safer, more stable downtown is good for everyone. Residents, businesses, visitors, and it's a story worth telling accurately, even when the internet's version of Salt Lake City sometimes looks different. A few other short stories to wrap up this weekly update. First, this Friday, Fort Cancer is at the Galvin Center downtown. For anyone who doesn't know, Fort Cancer is one of the best food events of the year in Salt Lake. Local restaurants, incredible food, all in support of cancer research and patient care. I serve on the board, so this one is personal for me. Come out, eat well, do some good, grab your tickets through the link in the description below. When you check out, make sure to select my name from the drop-down list. It means a lot. Cancer is something that affects all of us personally, so let's do our part to get rid of it once and for all. Second, the 9th and 9th whale got a new look. The beloved whale in the 9th and 9th neighborhood, one of the most recognizable pieces of public art in the city, was repainted this week with a fresh, updated design. Salt Lake has a lot of feelings about this, as Salt Lake does. The original has been there for years and has become a true neighborhood landmark. The new version keeps the whale but updates the surrounding imagery. Go see it for yourself and decide. Third, the University of Utah just opened its brand new state-of-the-art medical school building on campus. The facility is designed to train the next generation of physicians with simulation labs, modern clinical training spaces, and expanded capacity. Given that Utah ranks 47th in the nation for primary care providers per capita, a stat I've mentioned before, this kind of investment is genuinely critical for the long-term health of the state. Fourth, a new film festival is coming to Park City. Details are still being finalized, but organizers announced this week that Park City will host a new independent film festival starting as early as next year. Given what happened with the Sundance Institute's move away from Utah, which remains one of the more painful cultural losses this state has taken in recent memory, a new festival planting its flag here is worth watching. Fifth, the Salt Lake City Planning Commission voted unanimously this week to recommend banning private jails and correctional facilities on privately owned land within city limits, a direct response to the ICE detention center fight I've been covering all summer. It now goes to the City Council for final approval, and separately, the New York Times reporting suggests the DHS warehouse at 60th West and 3rd South may be offloaded entirely. The community fought back hard, and it's working. Next week's guest is one of my favorite interviews yet, and I mean that. I sit down with Josh Rosenthal, founder of the Borderlands Ultra Running podcast and media company. Going in, I thought we'd talk about ultra running, building a media brand, the endurance community here in Utah, and why he decided to build it here, and we did. But what I did not see coming was that Josh is also the founder of some of the most iconic spots in Salt Lake City. Seabird, La Barba, Yoko Ramen, Yoko Tacos. The guy is quietly one of the most impactful people in the city's food and culture scene, and he's barely talked about it publicly. So this next week is definitely an episode you are not going to want to miss. So that's the week, Salt Lake. Workers in Eagle Mountain deserve better. The tax deal conversation in this state is long overdue. UTA fares are going up. Go weigh in before September 9th, and downtown is actually getting safer. That's worth saying out loud. Make sure to follow on Instagram and TikTok at Small Lake Pod, and if you've been listening for a while and haven't subscribed yet, make sure to do that now. It takes 2 seconds wherever you get your podcasts, and genuinely it helps the show grow. And if you have thoughts on any of the stories we've covered today, the tax break stuff, the UTA fares, anything, drop a comment below. I actually read them, and make sure to join the Discord. The link is in the show notes. Thanks again, Small Lake City. I will see you next week with Josh Rosenthal.